And welcome
To what?
to Rotisserie Chicken.
This is it? This is the pod?
Yeah, this is the podcast where we fight for 30
man.
minutes before recording every episode.
Well, at least we look good on camera.
Yeah.
I feel like I look like our topic today, and Anna looks beautiful as usual.
We got to get our lighting right, which thank you, sire. We need to get our lighting right. Our lighting setup is not great.
I fear the light. It's been my people's mortal enemies for a very long time. That's why we live in the upper yonders.
Actually, now that we're talking about it, I forgot to take my medicine today. I need to go take it. It's actually like super important. It keeps this thing I have really under control, and I feel it like starting to come up. So I'm gonna go do that really quick.
The depression. Oh, okay.
Oh no, it's too late. Oh no, it's too late. I guess I'll just take it after the episode.
You look like an old-timey vampire. It's because they're like close together, so you kind of look like a if Bugs Bunny was a vampire.
You mean Nosferatu?
Which we saw. We went and saw. We're gonna give should we do a movie review of Nosferatu at the top or at the bottom of the episode? Middle of the episode. All right, we'll do that. So our topic, this is a loose fit because me and Anna, I have done minimum amount of research, but I think growing up,
I'm fixed.
Me and Anna were both obsessed with the topic of vampires.
Vampires.
So I've got like a pretty decent working knowledge.
Can I make a statement? Not just growing up, but still currently as I am.
Still currently.
Obviously. Did you not just see my extreme kinship to it?
Yeah. So what do you know about vampires? Where do we want to start?
So I know that vampires, well, and this is all loosely because my understandings of things are always usually at about 40%. But vampires come from, I think the lore comes from Eastern Europe, and it was part of the mythology of like Transylvania and Romania and things that kind of like werewolves and curses and enchantments and these basically monsters and creatures of the night. I think it came from Eastern.
So you were half correct.
Exactly.
Per usual, I would say a little bit over. So our modern concept of vampires are a very 18th century European idea. Mm-hmm. But the mythos of the vampire has its roots as far back as Hebrew, ancient Greek, and Mesopotamian cultures.
Whoa.
All had ideas of the blood-sucking undead immortals.
Where was the first documented instance of it?
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. I do want to do a deep dive, but this is a relaxed fit.
This is the kiddie pool.
This is the kiddie pool of vampires. I do know that the first recorded word for vampire in English was in the early 1700s. But all these different cultures, like just getting into the word vampire, I'm looking at the Wikipedia, and it is breaking down the German origins, Poland, Mesopotamia, Slavic, Turk, Bulgarian, Macedonia, some languages I don't even know, Bosnia, Croatia.
Okay, we got it.
The origin for the word vampire is unknown because it is so rampant through all major cultures, dating back to, like I said, Mesopotamia, that we just don't even know where the word came from.
What do you think it is culturally that has had different cultures and groups of people have this idea of the blood-sucking undead?
I think there's two theories. My first theory is they're real. They're real vampires, or at least there once were. And so kind of like how people are starting to think that the idea of the dragon is that there may have actually been like giant fucking lizards at some point that humans interacted with that
Komodos.
Bigger, and we just haven't really historically put them in place. And so maybe they weren't around in medieval times, but ancestors after ancestors were like, there's these giant fucking lizards you gotta look out for. And maybe there were, or still are, vampires. And the reason why there are so many different cultures that talk about them is because they actually interacted with them.
Okay, well, what reality is that theory based in? Because you and I did a Google search yesterday on whether or not one could subsist from blood, and we kind of determined that you can't really subsist from it. There's not enough nutrients or like very minimal protein. If someone was to completely stop eating food and then just drink blood, it wouldn't work. They would die. Yeah, you can't survive off.
So again,
you were all like, you might as well just drink pee at that point.
Again, I will break it down
This isn't pee.
Into two different theories of if vampires exist. One, there is a scientific explanation that it could be a disease that corrupts the human form, like a lot of movies have kind of suggested, or they're a completely different organism, like vampire bats, who do subsist off of drinking the blood of their prey. So in a scientific way, they could be a completely different type of animal that evolved to be like that. So we can't drink blood and live, but they can. Or it's some type of mutation that could be spread through infection. The alternative to the scientific explanation is that there is a mystical realm to our world, and mystical creatures, at least maybe the vampires, do exist. And they're not fully of this realm.
Well, you know what my guess would be about it? My guess would be that it's like anything, or almost everything that we've studied that alludes to a religious origin or some, because the Bible and the religious teachings, and not just the Bible, but you know, all the Islamic kind of centric religions that spawned, there's this idea of darkness and light, and then good and evil. And I think from that concept of dark, villainous, there's a lot of kind of lore that has spawned, at least in mythology, of these kind of evil, satanic creatures. And so that would be my guess of where this vampirism.
Well, I think, and that was my other idea of where you asked where it came from, and I said maybe they really did exist. But the archetypal idea is basically what you just espoused, is that they're an archetypal representation of a dark aspect of the human existence. And it's the idea of sacrificing one's humanity for like power and immortality, where you legitimately drain the life force from other living creatures. And that's why we use literarily, we'll call, you know, not to be too topical, but CEOs of a healthcare industry as vampires. You know what I mean?
Do we call them that?
Some people will hearken extreme capitalist as vampires, and the idea that they're these blood-sucking leeches of society where you drain.
Yeah, you suckle from the...
drain the life.
Yeah. You suckle from the life force of others to sustain yourself.
And that's what the metaphor would imply, is surrendering to that darker impulse for power.
As we heard yesterday, you are supping from the blood of...
Sucking from the blood.
I got really good at doing the voice and the breathing yesterday. So.
We'll save our critiques for Nosferatu for later.
And impressions.
It did kind of sound like our boy needed an inhaler.
Yeah.
A breathing
that boy
treatment.
had
He needed
COPD.
He needed a Vicks vapor rub real bad.
That boy had COPD.
But so we came up with the idea of like either A, they really did exist, or B, It's an archetypal manifestation of the human psyche. But the origins are very unclear. What kind of origins have you sort of heard?
Well,
Of the first vampire.
The only origins that I really know is that Transylvania, Romania mythology.
And that's like your classic, like, Vlad the Impaler was very much the inspiration for Dracula. And the idea behind Dracula in 1600 Europe is going to be rooted in what?
Things sucking.
Close. Catholicism. So right. a lot of the origins of vampires are that they are creatures who've made a pact with the devil. I know that there are some origins of vampires linking them to Judas, that Judas was the first vampire. Okay. That his curse for forsaking Christ was to, wander the earth forever, immortal and feasting off people's blood. There's a sect of vampires known as the Children of Judas, who their unique aspect that makes them the Children of Judas is that they're all redheaded.
Okay, wait, who was Judas? I don't know anything about the Bible.
So Jesus had 12 disciples. 12. One of them was Judas. And is
that where we get fruit by the foot from?
Yeah, what? Where did you get 12 disciples fruit by the foot?
I'm just playing.
Well, I don't get the joke.
I was thinking about there's 12 inches in a foot. And then you got Judas, who probably likes fruit. And then you got a foot. I don't know. I derailed this whole thing.
Do you think that's what the Last Supper was? It was just fruit by the foot? He was like, I've got 12 feet by the foot.
And then everybody died.
But so Judas sold out Jesus to the Pharisees, not the Pharisees, to the Romans, and they for 30 pieces of silver. And then that's how he got crucified, as they were on the lookout. And then the things that make the Children of Judas vampires unique is they're redheaded, because apparently there's a reference in the Bible to Judas being redheaded, which may lend itself to why many of my people were persecuted for their hair color. But also when they bit, they left the mark of 3 X's, which was to represent the 30 pieces of silver that Judas got for selling out Jesus.
And so they think vampires originated from that?
Yeah.
Which is what I was saying, a religious origin.
Yeah, and I do think there's some that think that Cain might have been the first vampire, because Cain's curse is to forever walk the earth, never to die, and even when the earth ends, he will have to stand outside the gates of heaven. So there's a reference to Cain being immortal. So and then there's some who believe that vampires are the children of Lilith.
Also from the Bible?
Yeah.
Dang.
So they're not in the regular Bible, but I think this is not the Book of Enoch. There's another group of books that were not put in the Bible that reference to a woman before Eve named Lilith, the first wife of Adam, and she was kind of a free thinker. She was a bit of a free thinker and wasn't super subservient to Adam, which is a mistake. So God scrapped her and made, because he made them kind of equals, and that didn't seem to be working out. And so there's an idea that Lilith is the original vampire, and that everybody after her was a creation of that.
I could see that. Dude, the audacity of Adam.
I know.
He couldn't even keep his own ribs locked down. That dude's gonna have the audacity. I do know that about the Bible.
So I did want to see, where's these folk beliefs creating vampires. Okay, so how do vampires become vampires? In our traditional sense, it's kind of like a disease. You get bit, and then now you got it. It's like a really bad game of tag.
Okay. But do you have to bite them back?
They're
like tag your it.
Well,
yeah, I guess you gotta like propagate it.
In some stories, if you get bit and they drink all of your blood, you just fucking die. You have to be bit and then not get completely drained to be turned. And then in other stories, you get bit, but then you have to drink the vampire's blood. And it's like that passing between the two is what turns you into a vampire. Not everybody who gets bit, because we would be up to our fucking eyeballs if everybody who got bit was vampires.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, lay it on me.
Do you think that the people who get bit and then become vampires and then suffer like long-term consequences from vampire bit call it long vampire? Like, you know how like
long COVID?
You know how like we all have long COVID now? You know, like you just feel like shit for somehow 2.5 years after you get COVID. And you think they call it long vampire?
I got that long vampire. The short vampire is just dying immediately. But here's some stuff that I didn't know about. A lot of what I'm going off is just stuff I have on my dome because I've been reading about vampires since I was like a young lad. Mm-hmm. But this says that in Slavic and some Chinese traditions, anytime an animal would, like a dog or a cat, jumped over a corpse, that corpse was at risk of becoming a vampire.
Specifically a dog and a cat, or could it be any animal?
I think it can be any animal, but particularly a dog or a cat.
Dude, they're constantly jumping
over corpses,
everywhere.
Dude. If there are corpses and there's animals, they're jumping over it.
Exactly.
So I feel like we'd be up into our fucking eyeball in Vampyres.
Maybe. You think that's what those drones in New Jersey are?
They're just vampires. It's hard to talk about vampires
and a little like Ivy.
It's hard to talk about vampires and not say vampire or start being like vampire. So here's some fun ways to prevent people from becoming vampires. It said that a really common way was burying them upside down. That was like widespread. Apparently, I guess vampires, if you bury a body upside down, it's like, all right, never mind.
Mm-hmm. It's like too much ab strength to get out of this position.
We really were just fumbling in the dark before science.
I mean, I'd say still.
I mean, still, absolutely. But
how many times you go to the doctor, they're like, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know what's wrong with you, but here's 20 prescriptions.
I mean, true.
I feel like that's oh gosh, here we go.
But my grandmother died January, and no one was like, how are we going to stop her from being a vampire? And then like somebody else was like, what if we buried her upside down? You know what I mean?
She was a pious lady. I'm sure she'd
I think she'd be fine. It also was said that you could bury objects on top of the bodies, such as scythes or sickles. I guess they had some type of spiritual idea. Practice of placing in Greek cultures. There's practice of placing.
Sorry to interrupt, but a scythe is like one of those long curved knives, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's like what the It's like what the Grim Reaper has. The scythe is what the Grim Reaper has.
Crepa.
In Greek culture, there was the idea of burying an obelisk in the corpse's mouth.
What's that?
To help. An obelisk is whatchamacallit. It's the Washington Monument in DC.
Oh, that shape?
Obelisk. That shape is an obelisk.
Very penal, if you ask me.
There's also some theory that those were ancient antennae that could be used to channel energy through ley lines. But that's a different story for a different time. Which way cross? Okay, so very typical putting a cross. I guess Jesus was a big battler of vampires. That's what I want to see. Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer, but like do like a sequel where it's like, or a prequel where it's like Jesus
Ham Lincoln.
Do you think Jesus, well, we'll get into it, but I was going to say, do you think Jesus was like a daywalker? Like he's like the original Blade? That's why he came back to life.
I mean, that would be pretty badass, wouldn't it? I could see it. I think he was a really nice guy, though. I don't know. I think he had more of a MLK like philosophy, maybe not so violent in nature. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think he would be a vampire. I don't really know. So, identifying vampires. This actually, I didn't know that I'm reading right now, and is in the movie Nosferatu, but it says leading a virgin boy on a horse through a graveyard on a virgin stallion. When the horse would balk at a grave, then it was suspected that that would be a vampire.
Oh.
And it said generally a black horse was required, but it says in Albania, you used a white one.
Ooh.
And that was a scene in the movie.
Yeah, which, by the way, did we do a spoiler preface?
Well, we're doing one now. We haven't talked about Nosferatu, except for, I mean, this is a very inconsequential scene. It was cool. But spoilers. We got spoilers for Nosferatu, and we're going to go into our favorite vampire movies.
We're going to try and keep some of the spoilers to a minimum, but there will be some spoilers. So if it would be better for you to go friggin' watch that movie and then come back at us. Right, my guy?
Okay, so we're asking typical, I mean, we're going to move through some of this a little quick because protection, garlic, I don't know why, but wild rose and hawthorn are sometimes associated with warding off vampires. Mustard seeds. I do know that there's a folklore that vampires have to count seeds and untie knots.
What?
Yeah,
I've never heard that.
They have like a compulsion, like an OCD to counting seeds. One of my favorite examples of this is in X-Files. There's a village, a town of vampires that Scully and Mulder have to like deal with, and there's a fight between a vampire and I think Mulder in a hotel room, and he throws a whole bag of like sunflower seeds on the ground, and the vampire goes, "God damn it!" And he gets on his hands and knees and he's like, 1, 2, 3.
Wait, I actually do think I remember that.
And he's like, "I'm gonna be here all day," and Mulder can like run away. He's like 4, 5, 6. But an interesting aspect of this that I saw was in one of my favorite vampire movies, Dracula 2000. I love that one. And in that one, it's referenced that Dracula is Judas. And so they lay out all these seeds on the ground around. This scientific crew has captured Dracula, spoiler. And they have him like tied up and hooked up, and they threw an entire like net of tied knots on him. And they threw out all these seeds. So the theory was like, okay, well, if he gets free, we'll be able to we'll have time to escape because they'll have to count all the seeds and he'll have to untie the knots. But he had been quietly untying all the knots with his little fingers locked up the whole time, and no one was noticing. And so when he breaks free, he just pulls one thread and all of them fall apart. And they were like, he's got to count the seeds. And he looks around and he goes, 4,003. He goes like 400, 300. He's like 435,621. And they throw more seeds and time slows down and he counts them in the air. And he's like 22,675. And it's like, oh shit, he's a magical creature. He counts them instantly.
Okay. How shitty would it be? Somebody makes you a vampire and they're like, now you have this infinite gift of immortality and beauty and youth, and you're going to be boundless energy. You don't need to sleep anymore. You don't even need to eat food, and you're going to be funny. But you're going to have crippling OCD for the rest of time.
God forbid you walk down the wrong aisle at Whole Foods you're like, damn it, there are buckets of seeds here.
Every time you leave the house, you have to check the doorknob like 30 times.
If it's fall, you're like, God forbid there's an acorn tree
Yeah, there can't be any trees with any seeds anywhere.
I feel like if vampires are real, that kind of stuff is probably like mythos, like kind of how different races thought about other races before they ever went there. Mm-hmm. You know, where people were like, I hear in Africa that they've got a this, they got a that, or like Chinese culture, like, do you know the white man? Like that kind of, I feel like it's that unknown explanation of stuff they don't know that's just dumb. So that's probably what that kind of stuff is. Yeah. I doubt real vampires have to count shit. But stake through the heart makes sense. Most things fucking die. You throw a stick through their heart. So that's probably something you can lean on.
Yeah.
If it's spiritual in nature, the crucifix and holy water is always a fucking go-to.
How do you get holy water? Like, how could we make some right now?
It depends.
What do we do?
It depends. I mean, if you...
I got some of this water.
Water...
you just pray over it?
Yeah, that's all holy water is. Holy water is just consecrated water through Christ. And so if you're like Catholic, it's got to be like a priest. A priest is like, I think, the only one who can that stuff.
Okay.
But I mean, if you're a Protestant like me, anybody can just be like, God, I imbue this water with your divine spirit, and then now you got holy water. Mm-hmm. Also, again, vampires aren't allowed to go on holy ground. But if you watch the movies or you hear the stories, it's always like Christian holy ground. Do you think a mosque? Do you think like people are running from like a...
I would assume, yeah, because it's all the same in my mind. Sorry, am I going to get shot for that?
Maybe.
It's all the same to me, but...
But what if you like run into a Scientology building and the vampire just is like, I'm going to eat you.
He like walks in and he's like, there are little aliens inside of any of you and now you're all going to die.
There's also the idea that vampires can't go anywhere they're not invited.
Yeah, and I do like that idea, except you're pretty quick to invite anybody. You're way too extroverted. Like, I feel like, also, you have a kind heart, so I feel like if a vampire was in disguise and he was like, hey, man, you mind if I come in and get something to drink really quick? I'm just real thirsty. I feel like you'd be like, yeah, come on in.
Well, I think,
I mean, I'd be in there like, God damn it, Jacob, that's Nosferatu.
I think the things that have done that the best that I've seen is inviting a vampire in, like a movie where they invite the vampire in, but they don't know they're a vampire yet. You know, so it's like they're like they seem like kind of a
That's
regular guy.
That's what I'm saying. You would fall for that beyond belief.
And then the other stuff, vampires are known to have psychic powers.
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh, I'm safe as long as I don't invite them in. But then they'll control your mind and like, make you...
It's Mancy, some kind of Mancy. I can't remember the name, but what is it when you...
Probably like psychomancy.
Psychomancy.
I think that might be a made-up term, but...
Well, I know the term necromancy, which means you can, like, control dead people. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what the term would be for living.
No idea. Man, there's so much. We got to do a better episode on vampires, but I'm enjoying...
we're just piggy dipping today.
We're piggy dipping. What was I gonna say?
Something about vampires.
That's probably my guess. Probably. What were you saying? Oh yeah. So we were talking about psychic. Now let's get away from the traditional idea of vampires and talk about how there are theories about different types of vampires.
Right, because, well, I know that there have been so many different stories and tellings of the type of vampires, and the stuff I know about vampires is well versed from film because that's my area. Mm-hmm. But I know there's the almost alien, grotesque, othered, malformed kind of vampires that look like somebody like left out an old piece of cheese, you know what I mean? Mm. Or there's like the kind of vampires that are like hot, really hot, and
but I'm not talking about like that. I'm not talking about different versions. What is it? cinematic different versions of vampires. But the idea of different vampires in the sense that there are blood-sucking vampires, which are known as sanguinarians, but there are also emotional vampires, that there are sexual vampires, that the way, so like the idea of the vampire is what they really want is that sweet life force. And some go about getting it in different manners. The blood-sucking vampires go straight to the fucking fig nougat center of us and just drain that chewy goodness out of us. But
they'd be disappointed with me.
They'd be like, ooh. Maybe they might think you're actually, because you try to eat real clean, they're like, this one's good. All of this is organic. No gums, no xanthan gums or preservatives in this one. So much
caffeine, though.
Maybe you're like a little energy drink. But there are sexual vampires that they drain the life force, kind of like a succubus, where they, through the act of sex, they're able to suck your life out.
Well, I thought those were different things. I thought a vampire was strictly blood related.
I think it depends on what you want to categorize, but there are definitely ideas behind a vampire just being a creature that drains the life force. And traditionally we think of the blood-sucking vampires. There are psychic vampires, ones that they build a psychic connection with their victim. In a lot of lore, they have to maintain like an eye contact, but once they've made that eye contact, they just start to
I feel like that's been happening to me at night. Because I've been waking up really tired. I've had a lot of fatigue lately.
Well, I think if you've ever read the Celestian Prophecy, they describe the fact that the big problem with humans is that we're all cut off from source energy. Yeah. And we get cut off through source energy because of trauma in our younger years. And we learn these dramas, emotional acts that we then drain life or source energy from each other rather than connecting into like the actual source. And one means of draining like that energy is kind of being like an energy vampire. And so basically the idea is that there are people in our lives that if you just feel so fucking drained after hanging out with them.
Yeah.
You know, some people would say that those people are unknowingly energy vampires, that they at a young age figured out that if they act a certain way, they could kind of get energy from other people.
Well, I've definitely heard that terminology.
An energy vampire.
Yeah, and I know we've met people who exude that kind of.
God damn! I met so many people.
I just call it being toxic.
Yeah.
You know, like you take a lot of emotional energy in preparation to be around. Honestly, there's actually a handful of people that I don't have in my life anymore because of that. And
I'm quickly becoming one of them. Am I right?
He's cut off, dude.
He kept me loose.
He's taking my life force every day.
But I think we've covered a decent amount of, you know, what are vampires, where they came from, different ways of identifying them. You know, the classic sense is they don't have a reflection, they're cold to the touch, they're known to be fairer skinned or almost like a blue because they're lacking like that youthful glow of having like good coursing blood.
Well, they're corpses.
Yeah.
Duh.
The way to ward them off, holy water, garlic, that kind of stuff. Also, sometimes they're known to like not really like cats.
Yeah, because cats be knowing, dude.
Their abilities: super strength, super speed. They're the a priori. They're apex predators.
Do they scare you?
No, I don't think. Because
so you wouldn't be scared if you saw Nosferatu walking down the street at you. You'd be like, "It's a Saturday. This is normal."
I feel like
You'd be peeing your little shorts, dude.
I don't know.
Tell me you wouldn't.
No, because I have a pretty good ability to resign myself to circumstance. So I feel like if I saw Nosferatu, I'd be like, well, the end.
That's it. I mean? So you're saying you wouldn't feel fear?
Maybe. I mean, probably.
That's what I'm asking you right now,
I don't know. I think it'd be a mixed bag. Let me ask you this. This is a more important question. If I would be scared of vampires. Would you become a vampire?
No. I'm ready to go.
You don't?
I've been ready to go for a long time. No, I don't want to be eternal. That sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah.
Just get me the fuck out of here.
I think I might like it. I think I might do it.
Ew, why?
I mean, I wouldn't. I don't think I would like to do it because I don't want to like kill people.
You know.
What's your favorite movie vampires? Who do you like the best?
Well, I think this is a good way to segue into the kind of the Nosferatu kind of topic. My favorite, and I have seen almost every vampire film in popular culture.
Like the big ones.
The big ones.
Because I don't think you can say, because there are so many shitty ones that I've seen that are like B and C and D, and I know you haven't.
No, popular culture.
Yeah. So the classics.
Mm-hmm. Dracula is my favorite book, and so Bram Stoker's Dracula is amazing, but Francis Ford Coppola's rendition of it that came out in 1992 is a fantastic film, and I think the rendition of Dracula in that movie as being someone who lost his love in a battle and then scorned God and devoted himself to almost like evil again, otherness. I really like that concept. Also, I will say I like movies that touch on the concept of vampires being these like forlorn, cursed, sad. It like becoming a vampire isn't great. So I do also really love Interview with the Vampire and the kind of the Victorian esque stories.
I think Dracula Untold is very much like that. Dracula Untold was a newer film that basically was like Dracula's Vlad the Impaler. He lost his like wife. She may have been pregnant. I can't remember. Due to like the wars of their like country, and he made like a deal with the devil to have the power to defeat his enemies, which turns him into Dracula. But unbeknownst to him, that great power comes with a terrible, terrible curse, and then he ends up becoming Dracula. And there was like a little nod at the end of that film that there was going to be a sequel, which I was really disappointed that there never was.
The modernized vampires are cool, like Underworld.
So I did want to get into that. One of my favorite aspects of the modern idea of vampires in film is this secret society that a lot of, so like Nosferatu was very much a lone creature, cursed, a monster. But the more modern ideas are that they're these secret underbelly, that there's this like complicated society of vampires, and they're since they're so old, they've been around forever, they have immense wealth, and they've kind of created like these networks of power where they're like sort of in like they're the Illuminati almost. And I really like movies that kind of touch into that. Underworld is definitely like that, where there's this like secret society, these covens that are at war with the werewolves. What else? Twilight. Even though I hate the way Twilight is like,
Twilight's fun.
Twilight's fun, but I hate the like they're like we glow in the, you know what I mean? We glow in the sun.
That's fun. Everybody wants to be cute.
This is the skin of a killer, Bella. But I like I like the like, what were they called? The Riviera, or we may be butchering Twilight lore.
I don't know.
But the like super regal rich like vampires who are like the council of vampires. I like that. Blade does that, is that there's this high Illuminati, and it's like all made, like not all, but a lot of politicians are like controlled by these super wealthy, super powerful, wealthy like vampire society.
Yeah. Gothic horror is my favorite genre, so I'm gonna have to, if I pick a vampire movie, it's gonna have to be that. But I think there's something that's very long-standing and kind of what's the word I'm looking for, timeless about the lore of vampires. So I think that as long as there's art that's being made, the mythology of a vampire will carry through. I think there will continue to be movies being made from it. There will be continuous renditions and styles, and it's because it's just a fascinating concept.
I think it's one of our oldest, clearly, and most powerful archetypes. Because I think the vampire is, the lust. It is a creature driven by one thing, and it's hunger. And it's willing to sacrifice itself and everyone else in the pursuit of quenching that thirst. And I think as long as human civilization has existed, we have had men and women who've had that problem. And then the development of this character is basically what happens. And I think it's interesting that in the modern version of being, rather than being this like outcast, detached lord or count of a great manor who doesn't have anything around them and they're like a loner, is this intricate web of powerful men and women behind the scenes, which is kind of like what people who are like that in our culture today kind of gravitate towards. The Bilderberg, the Trilateral Commission, these people the Clintons, if you wanted to say people were vampires, I think old Bill Clinton might be one.
Well, you want to
yes.
wrap up with like a Nosferatu review?
Yes, we're going to wrap up with our Nosferatu. So tell me, what did you think?
I loved it. I mean, I thought that the cinematography is really nice. Robert Eggers is a fantastic director. I'm familiar with The Witch, which he directed, which was great. I think one of the things that I noticed from this rendition of Nosferatu is it seemed to take a lot of the kind of cinematography from Francis Ford Coppola's version of Dracula that came out in 1992. This movie reminded me a lot of that. And since that's one of my favorite movies, that's not a complaint. But there were shots that were very similar to that movie. So I could tell that Robert Eggers had some inspiration there. I think the kind of romanticism behind the story, I believe the actors portrayed it really well. I think that the overall aesthetic of the film was really cohesive, very dark.
I think 10 out of 10. Costume, set design, cinematography, lighting. I saw someone talking about the movie and that apparently all the fire in the film is lit with real fire. So it's like a lot of times they'll have a flame or they'll CGI in a flame, and then all the light from that flame is created from like electrical light. But they didn't want to do that. So when there's like a scene in a tavern and it's lit up with like fireside light and candles, they didn't light that with electrical light.
Yeah.
But they did say they had to pack like 20 times the amount of candles you would normally need to light that space so that it would come up on film. But you could really feel the warmth. I mean, it's definitely... the thing that I will critique, not necessarily critique, but I will note that they didn't do this, is they didn't really try to humanize Nosferatu at all. In a lot of other vampire movies like this, they kind of are like you said, they make the creature out to seem like this emotional, tortured.
Yeah.
But no, Nosferatu was a unapologetic monster.
I mean, there wasn't really any backstory with him.
No, I think they did a pretty good job of kind of.
I'm also kind of confused how he had connected with Ellen prior to meeting Thomas, because so he was all like wrapped up in the lady who was Thomas's fiance, but their relationship was established prior to Thomas actually leaving and going to the Count's castle. So I'm like, well, what app were they both on? Like, how did Count encounter her?
So William Dafoe's character had like a throwaway line to kind of explain that, but it was the idea that Ellen, she had a natural connection to the esoteric, the mystical, and the magical. And he says that in a different time, she would have been like a high priestess in a time that actually understood magic as something to really respect, and that there were these magical forces out there, that she would have been a high priestess. But unfortunately, she was born in the early 1800s, where man is starting to give over to like science, and that Nosferatu, she must have been like a beacon in the dark. Her that connection to the mystical.
Okay.
So basically, she was attuned to
just her though, out of all the people on Earth.
I think she was very highly attuned. So she was connected. Like apparently, she talked about how she had like magical predictions and stuff like that in her early childhood, which caused her to be so alienated that by the time she was like 16, she beckoned out into that dark space for connection, and what answered was Nosferatu.
Well, so Thomas shows up, and he's like, I like this chick. She's weird. She's real strange. She's got all these visions.
He was into it.
Epilepsies, but I like a challenge. I do.
And I think they did I think some parts of it were a little fast paced, but I did think they did a really good job of upping the ante. You know, the part where Thomas is trapped in the castle was really scary. And I was like, where do you go from something so scary? But then the whole like plague situation and the streets being ravished, and like they showed this turn from a healthy, bustling German village into this desolate, dark.
Which that's a good point about the plague itself, is like really terrifying. And thinking what that would have been like as you're on a ship and you're sailing, and then somebody starts getting all these blisters and a fever, and you realize you're stuck with it, you know? Like that would be super scary.
Apparently. And Nosferatu isn't actually, I don't think that's his name in the movie. I think that's what they call him. But I found on the internet.
His name was Steve.
His name was Billy Bob Joe the Third. No, apparently Nosferatu is a type of ancient vampire. So he is a Nosferatu, not so much his name. Right. I think his name was Orlik.
His name was Count Orlok, but Nosferatu means...
like
yes, it means
dark
vampire,
ancient vampire.
Right.
So I think we covered vampires pretty good. You got anything else you want to say?
No, I mean, I think you should go see Nosferatu and give Robert Eggers some props.
Give him mad props. I think it was good. What was the other ones he's done?
The acting was phenomenal. So Robert Eggers has done The Witch with 2 V's, The Lighthouse, and he's done gosh, what was the other one that he did?
The Witch, The Lighthouse,
and then what was the other one? Will you Google?
I don't know. I know he loves William Dafoe. He's like, can I put William Dafoe in it? Is my boy Bill coming with me? What's his first name again?
Robert Eggers.
Oh, he's cute.
Northman.
Yeah. Northman is probably not like the other ones.
Yeah, so he definitely has an aesthetic.
The Lighthouse looked good.
Yeah. He has, so his theme is very not feel good.
Oh, really?
Yeah, his theme is like,
Where's
dark
he
kind of.
from? I bet he's
Melancholy.
He's from New Hampshire. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably why I'm drawn that way down yonder.
Let me think. What's my favorite? Oh, what's that vampire TV show that was really good?
Vampire Diaries?
No, vampire. What is it? No. Oh, god damn it. The Strain. So The Strain on FX was... I only watched like some of the first season, but the way they went about doing vampire stuff was very unique and interesting and like very like fresh. I just, ever since I was a kid, I've been kind of obsessed with the idea of vampire. I love the multifaceted nature of, you could go it being this like blind animalistic creature all the way to this like biological infection that led to these secret Illuminati societies through the ages. So
yeah, that's cool.
It's cool. All right, vampire chickens, protect your neck.
Protect your neck.
Protect your neck. I wish we could end this episode with the Wu-Tang protect your neck, but we don't have the money like that, so
we don't.
Buggle.